Hi, I'm Rachel Dillon,
And I'm Marcus Dillon.
and this podcast is Who's Really the Boss, where we highlight the joys
And challenges.
of running a business with your spouse or family.
Our mission is to strengthen families and businesses by helping listeners avoid the mistakes we have made so they can lead
And live happily ever after. Welcome back to another episode of Who's Really the Boss.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
I know it's exciting. It's been a little while since we've recorded together, and so looking forward to this conversation with you. Today, we're talking about compromising as a couple. How excited are you to talk about this conversation?
Not very. After you shared the text or the outline for this one, it kind of leaves me scared. I kind of equate it to a courtroom where I'm the defendant and I'm going to be maybe in the hot seat on most of this conversation.
No. So we just recently celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary and 24 years actually together as a couple, as Marcus and Rachel. And so clearly we're doing something right, or we wouldn't be where we are today. So I don't feel like you have to be on the defensive for this conversation.
So for everybody doing the math out there, we got married when we were 11 and we've been together since we were 7. So
Nice.
It's fun. Good times.
Nice. I think that math is wrong, but it's okay. It's everybody knows you're joking. So anyway, I think the wrinkles tell a different story. So if anyone's watching online and not just listening.
Yeah, my wrinkles are in full effect today for sure.
Well, let's kick off. I'll start us off with how compromise from my perspective goes. And so this is interesting, I think. And so typically what happens, you let me know of an idea, a want, a need, something that you've thought about and share that with me. My immediate response is no, and usually throw a tantrum, like have a full on like meltdown, overwhelm, and then come back and let you speak into why you think that's a good idea or why you think you need that, we should do that. And then usually just say, okay, let's do it. So that's a typical scenario of how I compromise. From your perspective, how do you feel like you compromise?
I don't know that I compromise well, and that's probably why I feel defensive today. I wear you down, and then you give in to things. And
okay, so the scenario I described is also your perspective on how we compromise.
Yeah, I think I compromise a little bit, but it's because I've planted an idea somewhere along the way, and then I'll let you own that idea, and then I just play along that it was a great idea, and that's how I compromise.
Make them think it was their idea. That's awesome.
And then I may even put up a little bit of a fight. I'm like, are you sure about this? And
really
you're like,
sell
no. It. Yeah. So some of those were great memories.
I love that.
Probably,
well, yeah. I feel like that you have some backup or justification in your maybe unwillingness to compromise. You read a book or listened to a book, I feel like, that was all about not compromising. It may have been from a customer and business perspective rather than a marriage perspective. But share a little bit about kind of what you took away from that book.
Yeah, the name of that book is, I think it's Never Split the Difference. Let me see. I'm looking it up as we speak. Yeah, Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss, and it's made its way. It's a few years old now. And so former hostage negotiator that wrote that, I believe, and definitely great at his profession, has kind of turned it into a full-time author and consulting gig. And I don't know that I walked away from that intentionally with like habits or skill set to have a compromise battle within our marriage. I don't think that would be that would not be wise counsel for anybody to try to do that in their marriage or their business. So.
Yeah. And so, just give us a little bit of a takeaway from what were maybe one or two of the reasons that, or applications of never split the difference.
It really, you have to define the, where you're coming from first and how far you're willing to go before you ever start negotiation. A lot of times is the takeaway that I got. And that's in a business context. Now, if you're talking someone off a ledge, I think it's kind of evident where you would hope that the situation would end. But whenever you're having a conversation with a prospect or a toddler, I think you have to kind of go into that with a little bit better of a understanding of what you want the outcome to look like and what you're willing to negotiate towards versus going in unprepared. And so that's kind of what I took away from it. It's been a while since I've read it, and I'm sure people will chime in if that was not their takeaway. So.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I kind of put you on the spot. We didn't really talk about that beforehand, but I often think about that book that you read when we are in a situation where we are looking to compromise, where we are not seeing necessarily eye to eye. Something that has really resonated with me, something that I have kind of taken and try to live by, is a principle that I heard, or an idea that I heard about, do you want a good relationship? Like, do you want the relationship to be good, or do you want to be right? And so I think that that is something that has helped me in the fact of, okay, I can pull out all the stops and win this argument or get my way as far as wanting or not wanting to do something. But what is it going to cost me as far as our relationship goes? And so I think that that's something that I always keep in the back of my mind when you're coming up with these crazy ideas and throwing them at me is, okay, if we don't do this, or if I really just stand my ground and say no, and I am unyielding towards this, what is it going to do for our relationship immediately and long-term down the road? So those are, that's probably the biggest reason I give in to a lot of what you say. I think definitely the other part is listening and just hearing why. But I know my immediate reaction, and something that I've been trying to work on, is not immediately saying no and shutting down and trying to hear out, because a lot of your ideas have been good in the past. So we do have that to go off of.
I've got a pretty good track record, and I think we'll have to dive into, you're kind of making me feel guilty. I don't even know what the last thing that you've compromised on that we're talking
probably
about.
Probably everything.
Yeah.
Probably multiple things today.
Yeah. So having dogs, having kids wasn't really a compromise, but there's plenty of things. Moving houses, moving office space, probably doing things in the business, because that's the other piece of our relationship, because we work in the business together. There is compromise both at home and in the business. And I value your opinion in both sides. And so I think those are some of the pieces, some of the purchases that we've made beyond like real estate and things of that nature. Ultimately, where I feel that my compromise has come in, or at least this is what I tell myself to make myself feel better when I compromise, is the answer is no for now, not no forever. And maybe I just need to get a better angle and approach this at a different season in life. And then we can move to Cabo and live on the beach. But now with 2 kids in high school, that's not feasible. So.
Yeah. So what then would you say are your strategies for getting me to compromise? We won't go the other direction. I feel like that's less of what happens in our relationship. And so what are some strategies that you use or some steps that you take when you know that there's going to be the immediate no reaction?
So out of all the ideas, it's a numbers game. So what I actually bring to the table to then get shot down is probably a fraction of what I've really thought through. So coming fully prepared, willing to not plead your case, but state the facts or state your opinions about why this is great for the business, for the family, for the finances, and going in fully prepared. So kind of similar to that book, you do your homework, so to speak, and you come in. And I think you also prepare for what that other person may put up as barriers or, reasons why not to do things. So you spend a little bit of time there as well. I feel like, hopefully we don't need to unpack this in therapy one day about how I'm controlling or anything like that.
I love how
maybe
you
you've already
said
unpacked that in your therapy sessions, So.
I love how you said on one of our previous podcasts that thankfully we haven't needed any marriage counseling or couples therapy. However, one of us does go to counseling. So maybe it is the fact that I'm carrying us, taking one for the team and carrying it all on my side. I just take it to her and then bring it back home. So that way it saves you a little bit of time from going, to any sessions.
Yeah. With counseling, with how deep in faith you are, I hope to get a pass based on how our marriage is.
Saved by your wife's faith. That's good.
Yes. Yeah. So, but no, I think doing preparation, coming to the table fully, can't have too crazy of an outlandish idea. And then when I find that there's a small opportunity that this truly may happen, then it's like, okay, well, how do I pour it on a little bit more or invest a little bit deeper to make sure that one, the point of view is seen. And, to your point, you've actually had some rebuttals and things where it does not work out. And there are times where it's just like, oh yeah, like that is not a great idea. Like that, we should not do that. And so, there have been those occasions, I remember spinning wheels, like in college when you had spinners on your rims and you said, absolutely not. And it would have looked so cool. And I would have had spinning rims and who knows where we would be with those spinning rims. Like,
okay, yeah, let's take it back to 2002 where you had like this blacked out Yukon with 20-inch rims, which were big chrome rims. You had a pit bull. So you were going like full rapper lifestyle. And I think that was probably the one thing that was missing, from giving the full vibe of rapper vibe, Marcus. So we'll just go with, I think you got the nickname M. Diddy
she
somewhere
was a great
in there.
dog. Yeah. She was a great animal, great dog, great pet through the first part of our marriage and the end of college. That vehicle was great, family mobile whenever we started having kids. You inherited that. And, it was a full-size SUV on 20-inch rims. And now 20-inch rims they're a normal thing. You got to get into 22s, 24s, even higher if you really want to stand out, if that's your thing. So,
well, I did love, I'll just have to tell you, I did love the attention that I got when I did inherit the Yukon and got to drive that around our, where we lived back then, and then quickly realized that people were not giving me the attention. They were just looking at the car. So there was that. So I think it was a realization when I was like, no makeup, dirty hair, and like 9 months pregnant, and realized, oh, those looks and honks and stares are not for me. Those are for just the car.
Yeah. Well, and it had limo tent. So it was,
they couldn't see me anyway.
Yeah. They can't see. So, but we've had some great vehicles. I'm a car guy, and we've had some great, and that's been part of the compromise in our relationship. And if it were left to my own, devices, I would probably have a lot more stupid financial decisions that revolve around automobiles. And, we've got room for them, so why not have them, is kind of essentially probably the take that I would have. And obviously with 2 kids, one driving, one about to drive, we've had to make some mature decisions around some of that stuff. But yeah, that's compromise. When I think about it, I think of those big purchases, big decisions on where to live, where to house the business, even in the business, your expertise on some of the other decisions on where we choose to invest in the business. Is it a growth stage of the business? Are we looking to hire and scale? That ultimately, whenever we come back to, hey, we run this business together and kind of make some of these decisions jointly, even though I was the founder of the business, like that's sometimes like you go along with it because of the success we've had up until this point. But even then you start to question like, okay, if the plan is to grow 100% in 1 year, what does that look like culture wise? What does that look like process wise? How are you going to do that and keep a great level of customer service with your existing client base, with those new clients? And so I take all of that in, whether or not you know that I do. And so it kind of has to go back to what is the vision we've laid out for the business? How does that impact the vision that we've laid out for our life? And how do we stay true to who we really are and what we've decided?
So I think for sure that you come fully prepared, that you have thought through. You rarely anymore will spring an idea on me that you haven't thought about prior to saying it. So there are a lot of times that you speak without thinking and just say what's on your mind. But I feel like when it's something that's really important to you or that will have a big impact on either our family, the business, our marriage, you really do think through those things. And then I think something that we have learned over time is that you give me time. You give me time and space to think about it, think of all the reasons that it's going to fail, that it's going to, cause havoc and chaos in our lives, and then present all of those things to you. Or you give me time to ask you 1,300 questions about how it's going to work and not just what it is. And then I think the compromise part is then we really sit down and kind of go through each of those things together. So whether it is you're shooting down every single one as like, that's not going to happen, or that's not a thing, that's not something to be worried about, or going through the details and letting me talk through the ways that we can implement it, or even just the benefits. And I feel like the wins for you, or the times that I'm like, yes, let's do it, they all go back to, does it align with what we value? So if we're doing something, if it ultimately aligns with what we value, usually the cost or the work that it's going to take to implement it, I can usually look past those things, because ultimately it's getting us towards how we want to live our life, the legacy we want to leave behind, the impact we can make on other people and our community around us. And so I think that that's really important, is just giving your partner, the person that you're trying to compromise with, time and space to think through whatever that idea or that plan is.
Yeah. I think the other thing that helps is just the underlying relationship and the health of our relationship. Because, at some level, there's a trust there. There's ultimately, 18 years is no small feat, being together kind of 24. And so I think we've kind of seen some stuff and made some decisions together. And it's just, that is our most important relationship. And so the compromise at the end of the day, does it really matter? You know, it's one of those like, is this worth the chaos that may come alongside on the back end of digging my heels in? And not speaking from your perspective, but from mine, you know, on different things. And so obviously you want to support your spouse in what they do and make sure that it does align with the vision that y'all have had for your marriage and for any other big plans you've laid out. So I think we've done a fairly good job of doing that, hopefully instilling some of what success may look like in a relationship to our kids along the way as well. So they're that much better prepared for life too. Now, compromise when it comes to those two, like, good Lord, like
between the two of them,
they do not.
I mean, there's like zero communication. So, I mean, there might be like grunts and arguments, but like actual good, productive communication, there's next to none. So yeah, compromise would be hard, very hard in that situation.
So what would you say, what are some tips for being okay to compromise for people, and being okay that this is not the battle I want to fight today? And sometimes we have to win both the war and the battle to, you know, make sure that this relationship goes forward, both in life and in business.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's really taking a look at why I want to be right. Like, why do I want to win this, or why do I want to be right? Why do I not want to do whatever it is that we're trying to think through? And ultimately looking at what does that do to you, to our family, to our business, if I say no and dig my heels in, and we're not going to do that in any sort. I'm not even going to listen to any more of this idea, you know, kind of what does that do? And then look at the other side. But if I say yes, or is there a part of this I can say yes to first, and then we can finish the rest of it? And what does that do to our relationship, our family, our business? And so I think that that's where it's a lot easier is when you're compromising, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can look at parts and pieces and see which ones do align with the values that you have together as a couple.
Yeah. And whenever you talk about setting the stage for a successful resolution on the other side of this, what does it look like from a timing perspective? What's appropriate? And then what level of communication needs to happen? Because, you know, we talked about the kids and their communication skills. And even from my communication skills, you kind of pick up on it that I'm processing and I'm probably playing out different scenarios in my head before I ever speak anything into like potential this could happen. And so that's just how I work, and I'll be silent and I'm thinking through, and you probably know, like, oh my God, what's he thinking about? And, you know, I'll be deep into, hey, here's the life plan, here's what it's going to look like. Or I may just be thinking about what really happened at the end of Lost, whenever were they all dead? Were they all alive? So, But what is a good cadence of communication throughout compromise? What does that look like?
I think that answer is like the one that people hate to hear on it depends. Like, it really probably depends on what the conversation is focused around, and is there a timeline with that decision that needs to be made? But I think for sure, just being open enough to listen to all the parts, you know, without saying no immediately, even though that's my MO. And then like getting back, like, well, we need to, I think just being explicit, just saying like, we need to talk about this again tomorrow. Can we talk about this again tomorrow? You know, and even we've said it a million times, like changing place, changing pace. Like, do we need to go to another area to talk through this? Is it too much to talk through this when we are trying to shuttle kids to different places, handle clients, handle team members, whatever might be on our plate for that day? Is it too much to talk through and really think through this, kind of on the fly, like, hey, what do you think about, while I'm like writing an email and getting multiple Teams messages at the same time? And so sometimes I think that timing would just depend on what kind of decision you're making, and does it have a deadline, before it needs to be made, and then just setting an appropriate time to talk. But I think for sure, most likely changing place and pace. So not asking or, trying to revisit it when someone's distracted or busy, but really setting aside a specific time that's dedicated to talking through that decision.
So maybe what that looks like is you have a parking lot, quote unquote, where you take the ideas and revisit those at another time. And whether that's a planner or a whiteboard or something on your phone, and then, hey, by such and such date, we need to revisit this, because as accountants, we love deadlines.
I know, and I think it's super
motivated based on that.
Super practical would be to send like a calendar invite, right? So that time is like scheduled out, and just put, whatever topic discussion, and block that time out of the calendar. So I feel like that's practical, whether you work together or you don't work together. It doesn't matter. I think our lives are kind of run by what's on the calendar and whose, activity is coming up next and where you need to be and when. And so I think definitely putting it on a calendar, even if it's for a weekend and it's for a lunch or coffee or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I think the wise thing to do is kind of whether it's your spouse or your business partner or another leader, let them know that invitation is coming before you just send it. And then that way it's like, hey, remember when we kind of left this conversation? I'm going to send you I'm going to get a time on your calendar just so we can talk through it. Because if not, like, they're surprised, like, based on like, oh man, why did they block out 2 hours on my calendar? Like,
are you speaking from experience, or is that when you start to feel scared what's coming?
Yeah, who knows? Like, yeah. And I want an agenda or an outline of what we're needing to walk away from in that conversation. That's a little bit too analytical, but I think that helps set the stage so both sides come prepared and, are willing to have an open and honest conversation, and maybe not begin the compromise with a wall or, some type of immediate, no, this is crazy, I don't have the bandwidth or the mental capacity to have this conversation right now. So I think if you can both come prepared to have that conversation, then that would be the best.
What do you think the benefits of compromising are? I mean, that's probably a hard question for you to answer since you don't really have to compromise too often, but.
So I think it is taking wise counsel and weaving it into the ultimate result. And so ultimately both sides have to live with the decision. And so if you go into making a decision in agreement, then if that decision doesn't work out, there's not as much animosity or bitterness or anything like that. So I think cutting that out from the very beginning and saying, okay, if we're moving forward, we're going hand in hand, we're going to go do this, do it to the best of our ability. And if we fail, we fail together. And so I think that is a much better approach to take versus going it alone. If you are successful, then, you hold that over the other person's head. Like, I told you so. I told you it was going to be successful. And then if you're not successful, then the other person holds that over your head and been like, you should have never done that.
So you can share the responsibility.
And so,
yeah, for sure.
So I think that's the best. That's the best result. And then sometimes there's decisions that don't even matter. Like, it's one of those, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't move the needle. It's not even worth the mental capacity of talking about. So if you want to go to Sonic and grab a drink, just go to Sonic and grab a drink. We don't need to fight about it, or if you want barbecue for lunch, like, just go pick it up. I'm gonna eat at home. Like, it doesn't matter. And so I think a lot of compromises around food in our family, whether we're going to eat out, whether we stay home and eat, with kind of how that aligns with how the day's going, what our goals are.
Do you
there.
feel like
And
you
so,
compromise a lot on that? I don't even feel like that's ever brought up. So those are your silent compromises that you don't even waste time on.
okay, are we going to have Mexican food or Mexican food? You know, it's like, well, that's the thing. Like, that's compromise in my life is, hey, I would really like, you know, Chinese, but Rachel will never go for Chinese, but I really want to eat out. So I'm just going to say Mexican because I know then I can go eat out. If I compromise and choose what she likes, there's compromise on my side that she never knew about. And so like
that brings me just exactly to my next point of, if we're doing it together, it's probably better. So, I mean, definitely if we're going to Mexican together, that's way better than us going to Chinese. So, you know, but I do think, if both,
and I just have to go to Chinese by myself or with somebody else. I think
if both people, if both parties are in agreement on the plan that needs to take place, they're both going to put in, 110% effort towards meeting that goal or, implementing that plan. And so you're going to end up with a better result than if you had just gone it alone. You've got two different minds and two different perspectives, coming into this. And so that two is going to be better than the one going alone, and the things that they may not consider, may not think about, and just the manpower to make it happen. So yeah, for sure. And then what are some consequences of not compromising?
There's a lot of emotional and probably bigger relationship, things that could bubble up into a bigger relationship issue if you're so stubborn and you don't compromise, and or even bitterness and like, I compromised.
Yeah.
And
I think for sure. Yeah.
So it would
animosity and resentment.
It probably, and that's the thing. I probably, if you unpack that in your therapy sessions for both of us, that's probably where a lot of discussion in most people's lives are around probably resentment in relationships and animosity and what could have been if only we could have done more. And it's like, she let me invest $10,000. If we would have invested $100,000, we would have got this return on investment. But things have a way of happening according to plan, so it's one of those, like, you have to have the faith to, like, hey, this is what we set out for in vision, and we revisit that plan or vision, however often we do, whether it's once a year, every couple of years, whatever, and like, here's the plan. And so I think that having, whether it's business or relationships, having kind of that fallback to kind of guide you is what's important.
For sure. And I think just making sure that, when you're compromising, the goal of compromising is just to make sure that both parties feel valued, feel heard, feel seen, feel respected. Those are all the things I think you lose when you're unwilling to yield or compromise. Just want to stick to your guns as far as whatever your position or your opinion was.
If you're not willing to compromise, do you just bring it up and ask for forgiveness later on?
Okay. Well, let's talk about how that's gone for you in the past, because I feel like that has been a strategy that you have tried to implement, as far as, if there's something that I want to do, I know she's going to say no and throw a tantrum, so I'm just not going to tell her at all. I'm just going to do it. How does that work out for you?
It's fine in the beginning stages. Until it's not.
until I find out. And honestly, so what happens in those scenarios, I really feel like you didn't trust me enough to tell me about it. You didn't consider my feelings or even my future as far as the impact that would make. And, just that you were only considering yourself. So really it comes down to like, oh, he doesn't trust me enough to tell me or talk through that with me. And then also the other thought of he never thinks about anything other than himself. So that's kind of where it gets whenever I don't think that's a good strategy, is like just ask for forgiveness after the fact. That's not a good strategy. Just go ahead and work on the communication and compromise. I think that'll help the relationship last a lot longer, be a lot stronger.
Yeah. So set boundaries in place.
I know. And what did you say? You said something, and all I could think about, maybe you were talking about therapy, but it boils down to we don't know how to communicate effectively. Like as humans, the people who get along the best, who have the best relationships, I think are the most successful in life, are people who know how to communicate with others effectively. And so really, compromise boils down to communication. Are you being clear? Are you thinking of the other person? Considerate? Are they being heard? Do you value their opinion? So all of those things are all go into compromise.
That's really good.
Yeah. Well, it's been a good conversation from my perspective. You felt like you were on trial when we started. Do you still feel that you're on trial, or have any guilt or shame that has bubbled up during our talk?
I'm trying to figure out what I haven't told you about yet that I may
get in trouble for later.
That I need to bring up as like, hey, what do you think about this?
Can you tell one quick story of when you have done something without telling me because you were concerned about my reaction, and then I just found out after the fact?
Oh, there's some. Why don't you tell me one?
Are you scared that there's one maybe I don't even know about, and you're gonna let the cat out of the bag?
Yeah,
I feel like one involved maybe like a vintage Corvette or a Jeep or truck. Yeah. Maybe they all revolve around vehicles. So pick one of those.
Yeah. So, and it was always, this is a good time to buy and sell, because usually I've always got the financial motive in the back of my mind. So ran across a vintage, Corvette that we acquired and cleaned and took pictures of. And who's we?
Because I was not involved. I had no idea any of this was happening.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be me and my dad. And so yeah.
So you had an accomplice. So there were two people
I did.
that I was not very happy with.
And so then, with the intention to sell it, and it all worked out financially. It probably created some collateral damage in relationship and trust and things, but financially we worked out. Like, it was great. And so, but it also came down to like, probably transparency wasn't enough around like, hey, like if you would have just told me that this was an investment and that there's a financial aspect and that you're just not buying another car to have another car because you can't drive more than one at one time, then like that's okay. And so that was real early on in life. I think that's probably been 10 years now, 9 or 10 years ago. And so, I've gotten better, hopefully, with time. I don't know that you think that, but I think I've been a little bit more clear. Maybe I've just gotten better at wearing you down about how I approach.
Well, let's tell how the story.
Hey, this from a financial
tell how
aspect.
The story ended. So you did make a profit on essentially flipping that car, and so you told me about the whole project. Your dad may have let the cat out of the bag on that by accident. I can't remember how I caught wind of the story, but the deal was done. I think money may have already been in hand. And so, I mean, like, how you made a significant profit and you were celebrating. Yeah. You saw no problem with anything that had happened. But when I found out, it wasn't like a slam dunk and I was like, popping open a bottle of champagne and cheersing you on this. I was freaking out, irate that it had happened. So Do you want to just give a little bit more detail about how that ended?
Financially, it ended well. And
but I would like, how long did we fight about that? We are still, I mean, it could have really been 9 years ago, and I'm still talking about it. Like, I still remember. I don't know if I'm 100%.
Your eyes
twitching.
Twitch.
I don't know. I'm 100% over this, even to this day.
No, and that was the thing. Like, we wanted to make sure we were winning before we let anybody know how much we won. So,
but it just to think about like the research and the logistics and everything, that the conversations that were happening. So you were sending either messages or emails, text with this person to purchase the car. Then you guys may have done a little bit of work to it, maybe none at all. And then again, to post it somewhere, have conversations with someone else, and then logistics to get it to the new buyer. So all of that happened. I had no clue. So that's where like the trust came in, like, okay, we have to communicate. So yeah, definitely don't just do something and ask for forgiveness later, because that's hard. That's hard to come back from.
Yeah. Yeah. And that one was different since I had an accomplice too.
Yeah, for sure.
But, and yeah, so that's one example. I'm sure there's plenty of other ones. And yeah, that was one that popped out of my mind. So
yeah,
it's all good.
I think that we have compromised on a lot more things as far as relating to the business, just talking through, scaling the business and having more team members and more clients. And what does that do? Because really, from a financial aspect, we may break even, but from a responsibility aspect, there's a lot more responsibility that comes with having more of something. And so that's one that you were really, you felt led, you felt called to continue to expand our business so that we can have a bigger impact and a greater reach on people. So people in our community, through not only employing them, on our team, but also through clients and helping to strengthen their families. And so that was something, again, where I was like, financially, if it's not going to put us in a better place, why would we do that? Why would we take on all of this extra responsibility and potential for disaster, chaos, extra work, however, struggles, whatever you want to call it. Why would we do that for the same amount of money or profit, or potentially even less? And I think kind of where we landed on that one was, what do we value more? Do we value being able to have an impact on others and have potentially more time together? If we do, we cannot stay the same size or get smaller. We have to continue to grow. And so that was one compromise that we talked through. We're very strategic, compromised a lot on how and when, and, by what means were we going to do it. And so lots of great conversations that we've had and that have really turned out in your favor, where eventually I say yes to most or all of the idea. And so I feel like that's just a better result than not talking about it, or, kind of both people just not willing to talk through and compromise on whatever that decision might be.
Yeah, I think the main thing, whenever you come down to like the compromise in the business and the growth and scale and what that looks like, I think you've been a good, not break, but you've slowed me down enough to actually review what the impact would be on others, including existing team members, existing clients, and future clients and prospects, and who we're called to serve in the community and where we've planted and things like that. And so you've caused enough pause to say, hey, like, growth is good, but growth, I'll give you growth up to X amount of %. and I'll give you growth up to this many number of team members per year or this many number of clients per year. Anything beyond that is chaotic because we have to live through it. And so, we've had that conversation a lot here recently as well. Just it's kind of according to plan. And now that we've got that in place and we know our role in that growth and why we're doing it, it's a lot easier of a conversation now because I think you and I are unified, and we may have to explain our reasoning to others, whether it's other stakeholders on the team, other people that may have to be brought in for that. And so I think it's duplication of efforts in the fact that I'm not on the witness stand alone. I've got you there as an accomplice in this.
Yeah. And
regard.
I think we can take it through the kind of filter of, can we do it at a very high level and can we sustain it? And so then that kind of helps too. Like, does it align with our values? Can we do it really, really well? And can we sustain that level of execution for the long term? And so now that we are, unified on that front, it makes it a lot easier when ideas or decisions come through that need to be made, that we can, kind of go with that together.
Oh, cool. Well, today was a compromise. I did not really think that we were going to film or record today, and you said we were, so I compromised for you.
So I'll compromise for you, and we can stop at Sonic on the way home. How about that?
I'll do it.
I'll do it just for you. Make me think it's my idea.
Thanks for hanging with us to the end of another episode. If you have thoughts, comments, or feedback you would like to share, please leave us a comment or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Join us again next week for another great conversation.